A great night for Trump, but definitely not a surprise. It's possibly the most anticlimactic Super Tuesday we've had in some time. But Trump, a real sweep across the board from east to west. And winning over a dozen states. Now, key to understanding Donald Trump's success is those rural areas of America, the parts of America where there's a big rural community that is normally white and non-college educated, non-university educated as well. That is where Donald Trump does his best. We look at a place like North Dakota where he won by 70 points. Oklahoma, he swept by 65 points. So he really did sweep the floor with Haley across the board, much more than the margins we saw in Iowa, New Hampshire and South Carolina in the very early stages of this contest. But Donald Trump doesn't have the nomination secured just yet, although it is pretty much a done deal at this point. We'll have to wait till March 12th. Until he can get enough delegates to surpass the over 1,200 delegate threshold needed to become the nominee, which will then get officially announced at the conventions in the summer. But Donald Trump, to all intents and purposes, is now focusing on this general election. He said it's called Super Tuesday for a reason, and we know that for the last little while he's been trying to focus on getting past today so he can get rid of Nikki Haley and really focus more on Joe Biden. What he's going to be looking now, though, is where Nikki Haley's voters are going, because it's in those areas that he needs to work a bit harder. He's also looking for more cash to go into his coffers. Of course, he's got mounting legal fees, and he's already falling behind Joe Biden's campaign when it comes to campaign contributions. And so given the road ahead, we're going to be watching what he's doing on that front. We already heard from the New York Times late on Tuesday that he met with Elon Musk, who we know is somebody who's been a big fan of Donald Trump. And we are told that he's also trying to get more one-on-one time with Elon Musk. So that could be a potentially massive donor and a massive game changer for Donald Trump, who has looked for more people to really boost his campaign in the national spotlight.
So, Fraser, where does this leave Nikki Haley?
Well, for Nikki Haley, it's all but over at this point. She will take some solace in the fact that she did win a state on Super Tuesday. She was looking at Virginia, Vermont, and maybe Minnesota. It turns out that the other two went for Trump, but Vermont, she did manage to win. 17 delegates, so not a massive amount by any stretch of the imagination, and it's an even worse picture for her when you look nationally. 23% of the vote on average is what she's polling nationwide, so not great. Now, her entire campaign centered around those more urban areas where there is a more higher concentration, rather, of college-educated, university-educated people. And frankly, she didn't do well enough in those places. If you look at somewhere like North Carolina, she should have been ahead in places like Charlotte, Raleigh-Durham, where there's a big research network there. And frankly, she just didn't have what it took. The question now is, will she continue? Up until this point, she'd said she was going to Super Tuesday, and then in the last few days has kind of tempered expectations of what to expect after Super Tuesday. And the question then will be, what happens with her voters if she does drop out in the coming days? She's been polling about 20 to 40% of the GOP voters in this primary. That is still a significant chunk of people. That's a significant chunk of people who say that they don't want Donald Trump, and a lot of her voters say that they don't want Donald Trump. And it's going to be in those margins that Joe Biden and Donald Trump have to vie for those Nikki Haley voters to try to pull them to their side. And that's what we're going to be watching for the next couple of months.
And this was, of course, also an excellent night for President Biden. He, though, used the opportunity of Super Tuesday to issue a very strong rebuke to his rival.
Yeah, Donald Trump has been the main the main campaign message for Joe Biden's campaign. The threat that he poses to democracy is something that they've been sounding over and over again. Joe Biden's campaign has been acting like Donald Trump was the nominee for the last few months. So in some ways, they didn't really care about what was happening in the GOP side, the Republican side of these elections. But it was a good night for Biden, averaging over 80% across all of the states. He swept it nationwide. What really, though, was what we were looking out for was that uncommitted vote. We saw in Michigan just last week, over 100,000 people voted uncommitted to show their discontent with Joe Biden's policies towards Israel and Gaza. We were watching to see whether that would gain traction more nationally, and it seems that it hasn't really. Minnesota was where we saw the highest number. 20% of the voters in Minnesota voted uncommitted. That is a higher number than the 13% that voted that in Michigan. 13% is what was voted uncommitted in North Carolina. And that is something to watch, because North Carolina is somewhere that the Democrats are hoping to flip this election, and it could be a real battleground state. And given the gubernatorial race that is now set up between a real liberal and a real Trumpist in the governor race, that could really be something that we need to look out for. So a problem may be there for Joe Biden heading into the general election, but his campaign is hoping to reel those people back. And when it comes to a binary match between Biden and Trump, they hope that they'll side with Biden.
Fraser Jackson reporting from Washington. Thank you very much.